You'd think having a sister who works in a hospital, she'd be able to do something. That's what my uncle said, loud enough for everyone in the living room to hear. My parents just sat there, didn't argue. Didn't correct him, too proud to defend me. Too ashamed to even look at me. My little sister was fighting for her life, cardiac rupture, out of nowhere, and all anyone could talk about was how useless I was. The same girl they called extra baggage. The same one they left out of family Christmas cards. The one they never bragged about at church or asked for help, until things got bad, real bad, even when I graduated top of my med school class, even when I pulled back-to-back 72-hour shifts. Even when I walked into operating rooms covered in blood, sweat, and someone else's tears, still. I was never enough, not for them, not compared to her, but that day, when the lead surgeon scrubbed in, when the hands holding the scalpel were mine, and the girl lying on the table was my baby sister, every beat of her heart mattered, and I didn't do it for them, I didn't do it to prove anything, I did it because I still knew what it meant to love someone, even when they've never loved you back. The surgery worked. The attending said the results were remarkable. And when the family asked who led the operation, they went quiet, all of them, because for the first time, they couldn't look at me, not because I failed, but because I didn't want to know what I did when they found out. Stick around. My name is Morgan Quinn. For most of my life, I was the daughter who blended into the wallpaper, the sister who never got invited to the spotlight, the woman people forgot at the edge of the dinner table. But I carried more than resentment, I carried strength they never cared to notice. Before I share the rest of my story, just let me know you're here. Drop a listening in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these words reach. Even one quiet voice can change how a story lands. And if any part of this hits home, subscribe. This story doesn't end here. There's a letter sitting on my kitchen table, still sealed. Been there 2 weeks. It's from my mother. I haven't opened it, not because I'm too busy, because I already know what's inside. It's an invitation. Dinner this Sunday. My sister Dana will be there. My brother Nick too. And if, by some miracle, Dr. Morgan Quinn can squeeze them into her schedule, well, she's welcome. That's how it always goes. I live alone in Portland now. 10 minutes from the hospital, quiet apartment. Clean. Efficient, kinda like me. Today I wrapped a 12-hour shift and pulled off a high-risk brain surgery on a 70-year-old retired firefighter. He hugged me after, in tears, called me a miracle worker. Then I came home, microwaved leftover lasagna, and ate in silence. No miracles here. I grew up in Glendale, Oregon, small town. Bible Belt vibes. My parents, Nancy and George, were practically local royalty, church on Sundays. Lawn like a magazine spread, 3 kids who were supposed to look like a Norman Rockwell painting. Dana was the golden child. She had dimples and bubblegum lip gloss, always giggling, always clinging to mom's arm. She was the heart of the house. Me? I was quiet, obsessed with bones and Latin names and jigsaw puzzles. The kid who knew what a sphenoid was before she learned how to curl her hair. I overheard my mom whisper to a neighbor once, "Morgan's smart." Too smart, maybe. But she's cold, like granite. I was 13. I went to my room and looked it up. Granite, solid. Unmoving. Alone. There's a photo from my med school graduation that I still keep tucked in my wallet. It's creased and yellow at the edges. I'm standing in a stiff white coat, holding my honors certificate. Dad's in the back, half smiling. Mom didn't come. She was home helping Dana get ready for prom. I think that was the night I stopped hoping anyone would show up for me. Tonight, I get a text. It's from Nick. Dinner this Sunday. Dana's flying in. Mom said if Morgan's not too busy, she can come. Not our Morgan. Not your sister. Just Morgan. Like I'm the neighbor's kid they remember when it's time to borrow a ladder. I scroll through Facebook for a while. Some girl from high school posted a photo from a family reunion, stopped by Aunt Nancy's. Dana's still gorgeous as ever. Her sister. I think she's a doctor or something? Didn't catch much. It shouldn't bother me, but it does, not because she forgot, because that's exactly who I've become. The girl people forget to mention. Before bed, I pull out a photo I've had since we were kids, me and Dana, at the beach. I'm maybe 8. She's 5, she's grinning, cheeks full of sand. I'm standing next to her, dead serious, staring straight at the camera like I knew what was coming. Sometimes I wonder, if I disappeared tomorrow, how long would it take for anyone to notice? It was Friday evening, just past 6, 15 minutes from the end of my shift. That's when my pager buzzed. Need neuro consult. Stat incoming trauma. I called back. Expected some post-op bleed or a routine case. Instead, I heard a nurse's voice, tight with panic. Stat transfer from Ridgeview General. Female, 32. GCS 7. Blunt trauma. Suspected intracranial hemorrhage from an MBA. You available? I said yes before I even heard the name. Then I opened the patient file, and my stomach dropped. Dana Quinn, my sister, the golden girl. No one had called her my sister in a long time. Not even me. The chart was all business, blunt force trauma. Lost consciousness at the scene, eyes reactive but sluggish. The transfer hospital, Ridgeview, was 2 hours away, same town her ex still lived in. I didn't ask questions. The surgical team didn't know our connection, and I wasn't about to explain. Just know I'm the attending, I told the nurse. That's all you need. She nodded. Didn't pry. I scrubbed in, tucked my heart deep under layers of blue sterile cloth. When they wheeled Dana in, something inside me cracked. Her head was shaved on one side. That dimpled smile she used to carry like sunshine was gone. The CT scan showed bleeding near the brainstem. If we didn't act fast, she'd either never wake up, or she'd wake up someone else entirely, and I couldn't let that happen, not on my table. The oar went still the moment the drill touched bone. 7 hours, that's how long we worked, clamping the bleeding vessel, reducing the swelling, watching the pressure monitor like our lives depended on it. One wrong movement, 1 second too late, and I could have lost her, lost the girl who never saw me as her equal, lost the sister I barely knew how to love anymore. But I didn't. As I placed the final stitch, I remembered something. Dana had knocked over Mom's glass vase once. The one she swore was antique crystal. I took the blame, didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Mom looked me square in the face and said, "You're her big sister. That's what you do." I was 8, and now, at 35, I wondered what she'd say if she knew I'd just saved Dana's life. Would it still be, "That's what you're supposed to do"? Or would I finally get more than silence? The residents congratulated me. "Outstanding work, Dr. Quinn," someone said. I nodded but didn't say anything. My throat was tight. My hands were shaking. I didn't go to the waiting room, didn't ask how the family was holding up. I just walked to my car, turned on the engine, and sat in the dark. The hospital lights shimmered across the windshield like a standing ovation I didn't feel worthy of. I stared at my hands, still smelling faintly of antiseptic, and whispered to no one, "She's alive." I returned early the next morning, white coat, clipboard, professional armor. No one asked questions. Dana had stabilized. They'd moved her to the ICU. She was conscious but fading in and out, confused, groggy, barely aware. The swelling had done its damage. She wasn't out of the woods, but she was safe, for now. I requested to stay off her primary team, clinical boundaries, I told the attending, but the truth, I didn't know who I was in that room, her doctor. Her ghost. I stood at the glass, just outside the ICU, watching. She stirred once. Asked for water. Then fell asleep again, and then, I heard voices, the shuffle of polished shoes and forced laughter. Nancy. George. Nick, my mother, father, and brother walking into the ICU like royalty in mourning. I didn't move. They stood around Dana's bed, holding her hand, whispering comforts. "Baby, you're okay. You're okay," Mom said, stroking Dana's forehead. Dad asked the nurse about her vitals, his voice calm and factual. His fear always wore a suit. Nick stood by the wall, arms crossed, trying to look brave. Then Mom turned to the staff. We need to thank whoever saved our daughter." The surgeon. "Can someone tell us who it was?" One of the nurses hesitated, she checked the surgical roster. Didn't say a word, but a younger nurse, still green and eager, piped up before anyone could stop her. "Oh, Dr. Quinn handled it. She was amazing. She said the patient was her sister." Silence, dense, soul-piercing silence. My mother's face changed, Dad's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Nick looked straight through the glass, and finally saw me. I didn't wave. Didn't flinch, I just turned and walked away, my shoes clicking softly against the tile floor. They found me, of course, I knew they would. I was sitting in the courtyard. Coffee in hand, cold. Bitter. Like every conversation we'd never had, Mom sat down next to me. "Didn't touch me, why didn't you tell us?" Her voice wasn't angry. Just small. I stared ahead. "Because if you knew, you would have asked for someone else." "That's not true," she said. I looked at her. "Isn't it? You've always believed Dana needed to be protected. But me? I was just clinical. Cold. The overachiever who couldn't feel." She looked away. Nick stepped forward. "Thank you," he whispered, voice breaking halfway through. Dad nodded. Classic George Quinn gesture, a nod that meant, "We see you." Except they didn't. "Not really, I don't need credit," I said. "I just needed her to live." Later that week, I got an email, subject line, "Patient Quinn, D. transferred to general recovery, vitals, stable, prognosis, positive," attached to it, an RSVP, a family-sponsored thank you lunch for the hospital staff, a gesture of gratitude, hosted by the Quinn family. It didn't even come to me directly, just a forwarded note from the admin desk. I clicked yes. The lunch was held in the south atrium, a bright, echoey space dressed in plastic tablecloths and rented chafing dishes. There was a banner, "Thank you for saving Dana," blue letters. All caps. Like a PTA bake sale, I stood by the back wall, lemonade in one hand. No appetite, no one noticed me, not even the volunteers passing out cookies. Eventually, Mom stood to give her speech. She wore a blouse I hadn't seen since I was 17. Her voice was steady. "Our family is deeply grateful," she said, hand resting on Dad's arm. "We never imagined the miracle we received. Dana is here today because of the brilliant team at this hospital." Her eyes skimmed the room, not once did they land on me. "To every doctor, every nurse, every hand that touched our daughter, we thank you." Applause, polite. Controlled. I didn't clap. A nurse sitting next to me, hair in a tight bun and years of wisdom in her eyes, leaned over. "Strange," she whispered. "Thought they'd say your name." I smiled. I'm used to being invisible. Afterward, I walked toward the exit. Balloons bobbed by the stairs. Dana's favorite colors, blue and yellow. As I passed the last column, Nick caught up with me. He loosened his tie, looked like he'd swallowed something sour. "You're not mad?" he asked. "That Mom didn't say anything?" I shrugged. I didn't do it for her. But that wasn't entirely true. Somewhere deep down, I had hoped, just for a second, that I'd get a glance. A nod. A single "that's her." But I didn't, and maybe that was the final answer I needed. That night, my phone buzzed, voicemail from the Oregon State Medical Board. I stepped outside to listen. The voice on the other end was warm, formal. "Dr. Quinn, you've been shortlisted for the State Surgical Leadership Committee. The official announcement will be made next week. Congratulations." I stood in the dark, no spotlight, just the steady hum of city traffic in the distance. Recognition, from people who didn't know my past, didn't care about my family tree, only my merit, and for the first time in a long while, I felt seen. The next morning, I was doing chart reviews in my office when my phone buzzed again, a message, from Dana. It was her first contact with me since the surgery, a single line, "Morgan. Thank you. I don't really know what to say. Mom told me you didn't want to see me." I stared at it, didn't reply, not right away, but I read it again. And again, trying to figure out if I felt angry. Or just tired, tired of hoping for apologies that never came, tired of being the first to reach out, tired of always making it easier for them to ignore me. A few days passed, then my phone rang, unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hello? It was Mom, her voice cracked through the speaker, soft and uneven. I didn't know where to start, she said. But. Thank you. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, are you thanking the doctor or apologizing to your daughter? Silence. I waited. Do you remember, I said, what you told me when I said I wanted to specialize in neurosurgery? She didn't reply. You told me it wasn't about healing people. That I just wanted to feel powerful. That I was chasing ego. Still quiet, but I didn't let her off the hook. That's what you've always believed about me, right? That I was cold. That I was trying to prove something. Finally, her voice, Morgan, I cut her off. You don't have to defend it. I've carried it long enough. We ended the call soon after, no big fight. No dramatic apology, just silence, but this time I didn't rush to fill it. That evening, I walked out to the hospital park, found my usual bench beneath the oak tree by the pediatric wing. A little girl tripped while chasing bubbles, scraped her knee. Let out a shriek. Her mom was there in an instant, scooped her up, arms wrapped tight. I've got you. Mommy's here. I sat still, watching them. I'd never heard those words, not from my mother, not when I fell, not when I bled. Not even when I broke quietly, again and again, and in that moment, I realized, I didn't need them anymore. Then came the formal invitation, blue and silver envelope, crisp lettering, Women in Medicine, a celebration of resilience revolution. They wanted me to be a keynote speaker, to tell my story, not just as a neurosurgeon, but as a woman who rose through the trenches of a male-dominated field. A woman who carried both scalpels and silence, strength and sacrifice. At first, I almost said no. It felt too ironic, telling a room full of strangers about resilience, when I hadn't spoken to my family in weeks. But I said yes, because maybe, just maybe, words still had power. Even when they didn't come from the people we needed most. The ballroom in Seattle was lit like a movie set, spotlights. Stage flowers. Rows of folding chairs with press packets tucked inside. The theme was everywhere, invisible no more. I stood behind the podium, voice steady. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I talked about being passed over, brushed off, forgotten. I talked about the long nights and the longer silences, how women like me are taught to save others, but never to expect to be saved. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. When I stepped off the stage, the applause was loud, but it wasn't the clapping that made me stop in my tracks. It was Dana. Standing at the back. Hair thinner from the trauma, body still healing, but eyes clear, and when she saw me, she stood up and whispered across the space, just loud enough for me to hear, "You're not invisible, Morgan." Not to me. I smiled, didn't say a word, because I wasn't ready to believe her yet, but I wanted to. Later that night, we met at a small coffee shop tucked between a used bookstore and a bike repair shop, the kind of place that didn't care if your lipstick was smudged or your boots tracked in rainwater. We sat across from each other in a booth. She looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just grown. She stirred her drink for a while before speaking. Do you remember when I fell down the stairs when I was 6? I blinked. Of course I remembered. You split your knee, I said. I tried to bandage it. My hands were shaking. Dana nodded slowly, yeah. And then Mom walked in and said, "Stop playing doctor. You'll just make it worse." I winced. I was 12, old enough to want to help, too young to know how to fight her. I thought I was being helpful. I whispered, "You were," Dana said. I didn't know how to say it. For a long time, I told myself you didn't care about me. That you never showed up. She looked up, eyes glossy, but now, I'm remembering things. Little things. Like you covering for me. Helping me with math. Packing snacks for my field trips. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't kind, I said. Not to you. Not to myself. I was too busy trying to prove I belonged. She nodded, didn't argue, and for once, the silence between us didn't feel painful, it felt necessary. When it was time to go, we both stood awkwardly near the door. Dana reached out suddenly and hugged me, her arms soft. Hesitant, I stood there, arms still at my sides, frozen. When she pulled back, I looked at her, really looked, and I didn't see the favorite child, or the one who got all the attention. I saw someone just as lost, just as bruised, maybe even someone who missed me too. The hospital held its annual recognition ceremony that fall, reserved for surgical teams who'd performed the year's most complex, high-stakes procedures. I was named the guest of honor. There were speeches, plaques, even a video montage with dramatic piano music and time-lapse clips from the operating room. But the thing that really got people talking wasn't the awards. It was the headline quietly circulating afterward: "Estranged sister silently saves her own." The article had appeared in the back of a local medical journal. Nothing flashy, just a short write-up, but someone posted it online, and then it spread. Comments poured in, praise, speculation, sympathy. People love a redemption arc. One comment stood out, cut deeper than the rest: "The sister cast aside becomes the quiet savior." I didn't reply, but someone else did. "Mom," she called me that night, her voice sharp and defensive. "Are you trying to humiliate me?" I stayed calm. I didn't ask to be written about. I was invited to speak. I told the truth. "If the truth embarrasses you," I said, "maybe that's not my burden to carry anymore." Silence, then she hung up, and for the first time in my life, I didn't chase after her silence with apologies. A few days later, a message lit up in my inbox. It was from Liam Thatcher. He'd been my mentor during my residency back at Johns Hopkins, sharp, kind, a surgical genius with zero tolerance for politics. His message was short. "Found this in the old yearbook archives. Thought you might want it." Attached was a scanned copy of a high school essay. I squinted at the title, "The Hero in My Life," written by Morgan Quinn. Age 17, I braced myself for something bitter. I remembered being angry back then, cold, detached. But the essay said this: "My little sister has a light I never had. But if she ever needs it, I'll be the steady darkness under her feet to help her shine." I didn't remember writing those words, but somehow, they felt honest, like a promise I made before the weight of being ignored hardened me. A week later, I visited the house where I grew up. The porch hadn't changed, same chipped paint, same hanging fern in the corner. Mom answered the door. She looked surprised, uncomfortable, like she'd been caught mid-confession. "I'm here to see the patient," I said flatly. "Not you." Dana was resting in her old bedroom, propped up by pillows, a paperback half open on her lap. She smiled when she saw me. "Weak, but real. I'd been remembering things," she said. "Little stuff. Times you were there, but I didn't see it." I sat on the edge of her bed and took her hand. "I don't need you to remember," I said. "I just need you to live." When I stood to leave, I paused at the door, looked back at the walls I used to tiptoe past, afraid of being noticed for the wrong reasons. This house had never felt like home, but something had shifted, not in the house, in me. I used to think I was just the shadow, but maybe I was the landmark, the quiet light they never realized was helping them find their way. They held the memorial service for my grandfather a month later. Grand Redwood Hall, white lilies, framed black and white portraits. Our family reserved that venue only for grand occasions, weddings, anniversaries, milestone retirements. And now, his farewell. He was the only person in the family who ever really saw me, who believed in me when I didn't have letters after my name or stories to prove my worth. I'd promised him once, sitting on his back porch, I won't let them define me. So I went to honor that promise, not for them, for him. Inside, photos lined the walls. Dana had a full spread, Nick, too, posing in color next to Mom at his law school ceremony. Me, there was one photo, an old one, taken when I was 10. I was standing in the middle of the frame, but my face had been cropped out, cut by the edge of the matting. Someone nearby asked, "Who's that girl in the middle?" Without missing a beat, my mother answered, some distant cousin. I didn't flinch, but something inside me cracked, just a little. Ellen, Mom, took the podium and delivered her speech with practiced elegance. She praised Dana's strength, Nick's support, the incredible medical staff who helped save Dana's life. Not once, did she say my name. Nick looked at me from across the table. He shifted like he might say something, but his wife placed a gentle hand on his arm, and he stayed silent. Then came a voice I didn't expect. Great Uncle Rob. He stood slowly, clearing his throat. I just want to say something, he said. I want to thank my niece, Dr. Morgan Quinn, for saving Dana's life. Seems like the family forgot. The room froze, forks hovered, glasses were set down with care. Mom gave a thin smile. Well, it was her job, wasn't it? I stood, not because I was angry, but because I couldn't let that be the final word. It wasn't a job, I said, it was family. And then, for the first time, I spoke my truth, not loudly, not with rage, but with clarity. I talked about birthdays spent at tables where no one said my name, about graduations skipped, about all the years I carried their hopes, but never their pride. I'm not here for recognition, I said. I'm here to remind you that a daughter who wasn't loved doesn't mean she wasn't lovable. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out a worn piece of paper, my grandfather's final letter. Morgan, don't let your kindness become your weakness. Let it be your compass. I walked out of the hall as the sun dipped behind the trees. My white coat draped over my arm, not because I needed it, but because I chose it, and behind me, they stared like they were seeing someone new. I didn't turn around, because for the first time, I didn't need them to say my name. I could finally hear it myself. A week after the memorial, Dana called again. Her voice was softer than usual. Hesitant, Mom's getting her heart checked, she said. The doctors think she might need a procedure. I know it's a lot to ask, but if you're free, would you come? She paused, not as a doctor. Just as you. I sat in my office after that call, staring at the wall. Her words echoed louder than they were spoken. Just as you. When I walked into the hospital room, Mom was alone, lying still under the harsh fluorescent lights that made everything feel colder than it was. No flowers, no visitors, just the sound of machines ticking time. She turned her head when she saw me, didn't speak. I didn't ask for her vitals. Didn't scan her chart. I just Saturday, after a long silence, I said, about what I said the other day. I'm not sorry. Her voice came slow. Raspy. I wasn't expecting you to be. We sat like that for what felt like an hour, then she finally spoke again. You were always like your father. I blinked. She hadn't mentioned him in over 10 years. The way you watched people, she said. The way you held everything in. I never knew what to do with that. I couldn't speak. The memory of him was soft, blurry, like an old photo you don't look at often because it hurts too much. She continued, every time I looked at you, I felt weak. And I hated that. You were the reminder of all the things I couldn't be. My chest tightened. I remembered the day I got accepted into the state's top med school. I ran home, glowing, expecting something. All she said was, another degree to hang on the wall. I used to tell myself it was just her way, her attempt at keeping me humble, but truthfully, it chipped away at me more than I ever admitted. I was scared, she whispered. If I praised you too much, you'd grow wings and leave. And I'd be alone even sooner. I let the silence stretch between us, then I asked the question I'd never had the courage to voice, did you ever love me? She didn't answer immediately, her fingers twisted the corner of her blanket. I didn't know how to show it, she said. But I don't think I ever hated you. Maybe that's the best I could offer. It wasn't an apology, it wasn't healing, but it was something. I stood. Rested a hand gently on the edge of her bed. If that's all there is, I accept it, not because it fixes everything, but because I won't let it keep wounding me. She turned toward the window. No embrace, no final words, but the sharpness in her had softened, and for now, that was enough. I stepped out into the hallway, The sun was slanting through the glass atrium, lighting everything in a golden hue that made the world feel softer. Dana stood by the elevator, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when she saw me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I know it's not fixed, I said, but it's not a wound anymore. She nodded, and for the first time in years, I felt something lift. 6 months later, I turned in my pager and stepped away from trauma surgery. No more 2 a.m. calls, no more adrenaline-fueled miracles, no more life hanging on a scalpel's edge. Instead, I accepted a part-time faculty position at a local community college. When the news got out, people reacted exactly how I expected. Colleagues looked at me like I'd failed some unspoken test. "You're too good to quit," one said. "I'm not quitting," I replied. "I'm just choosing to fight at the root." My classroom wasn't filled with Ivy League prodigies or fast-tracked residents. It was women with fire in their eyes, former waitresses, night shift RNs, single moms juggling textbooks and diaper bags. They weren't polished, but they were hungry, and I saw myself in them. On the first day, I didn't start with anatomy. I asked one question: how many of you have ever been told by someone you love that you're not good enough? Nearly half the hands went up. I nodded. I'd been in your seat. No one thought I'd become anything, but I did, because I believed it before anyone else did. That Friday, after class, I found a letter on my desk, handwritten, Dana's handwriting. My hands trembled a little as I opened it. Inside, I told Mom and Dad everything. About you. What you did. They didn't know what to say. But I did. I told them I'm proud to be your sister. Tucked inside was a photo, Dana, still in her hospital gown, holding hands with a nurse, my hand. The moment was quiet, simple, but it felt sacred, a reminder that not all wounds scar, some, when tended to properly, transform. That night, I walked home through familiar streets, but I didn't walk like the person I used to be, back straight, shoulders relaxed, no weight pressing me down. I stopped by a little shop I'd passed 100 times, picked up a pair of soft leather gloves. The clerk raised an eyebrow. "What are you using these for?" I smiled. "To teach people how to hold a scalpel, not to fight, but to heal." Back in my apartment, my quiet, earned space, I stood by the window. The degrees still hung on the wall. Next to them, framed photos from my intern days. But now, right in the center, where my eyes land when I walk in, was Dana's letter, framed carefully, like a diploma in its own right. I used to think I was just the shadow in my own family, but now, I've become a quiet light, not one that dazzles, not one that demands attention, but one soft and steady enough to help others find their way, and maybe, that's enough. This isn't a story about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about a woman who found her worth, not in applause, but in silence that finally meant something. She learned that you can heal without ever receiving an apology, you can be whole without anyone's approval, and sometimes, light doesn't have to be loud to help others find their way, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply whispers your name back to you. And this time, you listen. Sometimes, the deepest healing doesn't come from finally being acknowledged, it comes from no longer needing it, because life will test your silence, it will question your worth in the shadows, but the truth is, you don't have to be loud to matter. You don't have to win their love to be whole, all you need is to keep walking in your truth, even if no one claps for it. If this story found a place in your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What part spoke to you? And if you'd like to walk with me through more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. Your presence here, it means more than you know. Thank you, truly.